What's the first word that comes to mind when you hear this applause?
It's nice. Wow. Are there people also way up there? Oh, yeah.
Yes, there are. I think the lights are a bit too strong up there. If we could dim them a bit.
That's why we don't see you up there.
Yes.
The other day I went to a Bob Dylan concert, and he doesn't want to be seen while he's playing. He doesn't want people to take videos or photos. So around him are these lights, and they shine into the audience. So he is invisible. And somehow you know that there he's sitting playing piano and singing, but you can't see him because he has lights around him that shine not at him, but at the audience.
Is that modesty or arrogance?
Well, I guess he wants to play in peace and he doesn't want to be seen. It makes you a little angry because you want to see him, you see.
Yeah, I guess you do.
Yeah.
But you create things that you don't have the keyhole to your audience when you create them. The audience always comes next. So how does that feel?
You want to connect, so you have to see them. And they have to see you. And that's all it's about. And I don't know. I think he doesn't want people to see that he's old. But we know he's old. Anyway.
But
you see, I'm almost as old as Bob Dylan.
But we like seeing you. And I know that you don't like flattery unless it has to do with your hair. Maybe Bob Dylan doesn't have such good hair.
Oh, he has very nice frizzy hair.
How do we know? You saw him backstage, I guess.
I saw it when he came to the front of the stage. At the end, he comes forward. Still no light on him. You see a little man, because in a big stadium, you see a little man coming forward and nodding. And you wish you could see him, but at least you see that he still has hair.
It's interesting because you have been creating movies about other people. Are they your heroes, your gurus, the people that you admire? That's a very generous thing to do, that you've been working on other people's lives, from Pina Bausch and now to Zumthor.
Well, it's generous on their side that they let me inquire what they do, you see. I'm making these movies out of curiosity because I just did not understand how Pina could create the work she created out of nothing. I mean, just with music and a few dancers or actors, dancing actors on stage. Not much. And she created huge emotions for me. I sat there like you now and I cried all the time. I couldn't help it. And I didn't know, what did she do? I never cried that much in a movie, but in Pina, I sit there and I cry. So I want to know. And she was willing to let me find out.
It's interesting because in general, people consider Germans to be rather cold. But you're a very warm person. Pina was a very warm person. And you cry. Why do you think we have such a perception when actually your films, Pina Bausch's work, and other poets' work, for instance, is so emotional? Why do we think that people from Germany are rather cold?
Because maybe you first think of cars when you think of Germany. And then you think of people, and then cars are cold, so I think it's a transmission. Transmission
German
error.
cars are trustworthy. They're not cool, but they're trustworthy.
Yeah. All right, so.
But it's interesting what you said about...
cold and classy.
You mentioned curiosity about their lives, but I will use now an ancient Greek word, but according to Aristotle, the word admire, thavmazin, means wondering. So it's about having a question. So admiration and curiosity are very close to each other.
You see, you only have to go to the origin of language to understand what you do. Admiring is not really the word, but because wondering what it is the real word. And admiration, of course, comes from wonder. Yeah. I was in total awe and wonder when I saw Pina's work, or when I saw Anselm's work, or when I encountered the Pope. And that is my form of admiration, that I wonder and share this kind of wondering with you. I'd be happy if you would be wondering as well a little bit.
We do. So how did it feel working with the Pope?
I wasn't really working with him. He let me ask him everything I wanted to ask him. He didn't act. He was answering my questions. And I don't know if anybody has seen the film, but I thought, if I ask the Pope something and he gives me an answer, that's an interview. And that is not exactly so interesting, because people see lots of interviews all the time, television. And interviews, you see somebody asking, somebody answering, and they look at each other like we are now, and people look at us. So it's not that interesting. And I thought if people see the Pope, they would like him to look at them. See? That is so much better if I look at you. So I found a way that I could ask the Pope something, but I had a camera in front of me, and we had a camera in front of the Pope, but the Pope saw me because in front of the camera was a mirror, and on the mirror we projected my face. So by looking at my face, he looked at the audience. He looked into the camera. So actually, it's now as if people had the possibility to ask him, and he answers. And you don't really hear my questions either. So he's talking to people, and that I thought was so much nicer than talking to me.
When you really want to see something, is the camera a distraction, or do you see better through the camera?
That's a good question, because it's a complicated process, because you first see something without a camera, and then you would like to repeat that. You would like, I like, my movies all start with that, because I like places, and then I want to tell a story in the place. So I want people to see the place, and I want the place to be part of the story, and people see it. So I know how the place looks good, but then I have to film it so people realize how good the place looks, or what the place has as charm, or what it has to say to people, because places can talk, places have memory, and places are great things to look at. So, and then the question is, how do you film it? And can you film it appropriately so people feel that they are discovering it? And that is the difficulty of making movies, not to make you feel you're supposed to see that and that, but to discover what you see. And that is a complicated process.
So what makes a good director?
A good director is somebody you do not know he was working. A good director is somebody who becomes invisible, because the actors talk and the places talk, and if you feel that the director is wanting you to see something, he did a bad job.
He's being didactic.
Yeah, but didactic
He raises the finger.
Yeah, we Germans are didactic, but not me.
You said
we are cool and cold too.
And you know how to play football, so you are very good when it comes to team working. But I wanted to ask you something, because you mentioned that the good director is somebody who must not be felt as seen. I was watching again Room 666. And first of all, I wanted to ask you, whom would you invite today to talk about the art of cinema? Which room number would you choose today to do the same thing?
Well, the room number was by necessity, because I made this movie in Cannes during the festival, and all directors who were there, because some people might not know the film, answered the same question about the future of cinema. And they're all invited into this room at the Hotel Martinez, and the room was 666, because it was the only room left in Cannes. Nobody wanted to bloody stay in 666.
The number of the beast.
Yeah, the number of the beast. So we put the beast in there, which was a camera, and as I did not want to appear, and as I did not want the directors to talk to me, because that's such a different thing if colleagues talk to you and tell you about what they think of the future of cinema. But we put this camera there and a sound recording device, and they would go in and sit and have the question on the table and read the question, and at the end it says, turn on the camera. So, and then they turn on the camera, and then they sat there alone in the room with the camera and sat there and whatever they had to say to the camera, which was it was all on film, and that was before there was video assist. So we never knew what anybody had said until 2 weeks later. And some of these bloody directors, there was this Philippine director who was so frightened by the question that he just read it, turned it on, and looked into the camera for 20 minutes. But I cut him out because I thought it was a waste of film. And I think today I would especially invite first-time directors. I think their answers to what they think is the future of the thing that they just start to do would probably be the most interesting.
And what would be your reply if we got you in a room and you had to reply to that?
That film was made. A young woman from France made the film Room 999. And I was in it too. I was the only old fart, and everybody else was contemporary young guys and girls. So I gave an answer like an elder statesman. I felt it was interesting to answer the question one more time 30 years later. And at the time, I asked the question to my colleagues because cinema was in danger, because it was the first time you could see movies at home. You could rent movies, videotapes, all of that was new. And a lot of theaters died because people could rent the movies. And it was so much nicer because they could see them whenever they wanted. So it was also that movies weren't so interesting. And a lot of movies looked like television, and a lot of movies looked like commercials, because it was both a big influence on the cinema at the time. So today it's almost the same. There's again a huge disaster happening for theaters with streamers. I think it's even more necessary than ever to keep theaters alive and go and see things together with other people. And even if a lot of us in the young generation is getting so used that it's all at home or on their mobiles or whatever, I think if all theaters in the world will close, some people will meet in a room and watch a movie together and say, oh, this is the coolest thing. We should market this. We should call it movie theaters. They should, and it would need to be reinvented today. And luckily, we still have some.
It's like the French Enlightenment, when it was said that even if there wasn't a God, we would have to invent one.
That would be not as good.
Definitely not. Well, in this particular film, and I keep going back to this one, because you did mention the invisible director, you don't have captions of the names of the directors. Wouldn't be like the normal thing to do? Why do we need to know that this person is Steven Spielberg? Not necessarily.
Not with Steven Spielberg.
Well, you know what? For people who watch it now, it's impossible to recognize that this is Steven Spielberg. He's
Are
very
you sure
young.
that there are not no names?
Yes, I am.
That's scandalous.
See? So when you see them, you're like, and who is this one? And who is this one?
Well, I call my foundation right away. We have to change that.
I think
Because it's totally right. I mean, nobody, a young audience, don't know who Godard is or Antonioni.
Definitely
And they
not.
gave the best answers. So people want to know who is this guy who gives the smart answer.
And of course, there's this TV at the back. How did you choose the material that we see on the screen?
No, it was just whatever was live on television. Some people who answered, men and women, directors, some didn't even care what was on the TV next to them, but some were very disturbed. The only one who turned it off immediately was Werner Herzog, of course.
Of course. But Werner wants to be disturbed. Actually, he has sat on that armchair a few years ago. So,
Yeah?
yes.
Did he keep his shoes on?
Well, believe it or not, he did. I don't know why. He possibly, forgot about them. But he has this very special connection to ancient Greek and archaeology because of his father. But when you really want to go back to this one film, or if you want to tell a young person, do make sure that you watch this film in your life. Is there this one that you keep going back to?
Sure.
Which one is that?
There is one. It's a film by Yasujiro Ozu. Journey to Tokyo. But you see, I have a film that I would go back to every day, but it's every day a different one, depending on how I feel. Because there's enough that you can see every day.
So which one would you recommend tomorrow?
Tomorrow, well, we're going to have a few drinks afterwards.
Yes. And I'll make sure that we post it somewhere so that you know what we came up with.
I don't know about tomorrow, you see. Luckily, I don't know about tomorrow. Maybe Theo Angelopoulos.
Yes.
I also was teaching for a while, for 15 years. And the students' films were all so quickly cut. And they loved to edit and fast and stuff. So one semester I had this attack. I thought, I'm going to teach them a lesson. And I showed them all movies by Theo Angelopoulos. But thinking they would go berserk and couldn't take it. But the opposite was the case. They started to think that slowness was the coolest thing. And they started to develop films shot in one take. I didn't intend that to be, but they discovered slowness as a virtue, and they all became future Angelopouloses.
Well, with that in mind, which one of your films would you recommend a young person to see?
You have it in front of you.
Yeah. So yes, I do have Until the End of the World.
This was not foreseen. I don't know why it's lying there, but it's nice. This is actually what I think would be nice that one day if I'm gone,
I love that film and I
still
love the
watch.
soundtrack. And I found out something today, that's why I have it here. I bought that 35 years ago in Yanina when I was still going to school. And I found out that what we see here, this pink shadow, if a shadow can be pink, this couple walking are actually your parents.
Yeah. This is an image from the dream sequences in the film. Because in the film, it's a science fiction film, a man invented how to introduce images into the visual cortex of a blind person. I mean, that's why it's a science fiction film. So a blind person learns how to see in the film, and then she dies from seeing too much, which is seeing is dangerous. And then her husband, who was able to make her see for the first time in her life, realizing she's now only living in his dreams. So he applies the same technology, only in reverse. He learns how to teach a computer how to see dreams, how to suck dreams out of our brains. And that was so adventurous to do that in a film. that I felt I cannot just invent these dreams. I cannot take other people's images for my dreams. So I took my own Super 8 from when I was a little boy and transformed them into these dreams. And that's why you see my parents walking on a beach.
Do you
Not
miss
a Greek
them?
beach. What?
Do you miss them?
I miss them a lot, yeah, of course, but I love them, so they're still here.
Well, there's this, I would say, location-wise detail here, that behind that screen we have the set of Oedipus, because we will be presenting Oedipus in a few days from now.
Nolan's film?
No, the play.
Ah, the play.
So it's going to be...
I thought you're going to see
No.
a new picture by
No.
Christopher Nolan.
Yes.
It's-
Oedipus is
he
not
did
part of a film.
He did the Odyssey. No.
Well, the Odyssey is
Not-
very easy to do. In order to present
Oedipus
Oedipus,
is dangerous.
but it's interesting, you know, there's this moment in Mighty Aphrodite by Woody Allen, where you have the chorus in this ancient theater, and Jocasta is there, and she says, "You don't want to know how they call my son in Harlem," obviously, as a motherfucker, obviously. But so we do present Oedipus by Robert Icke, and here we have this dysfunctional family, which is perfect until the moment this blind man comes in, the fortune teller, Tiresias, who can see everything. And that's why he comes in and says that there's something really wrong happening here and you're going to find out. And when Oedipus finds out the truth, he takes his eyes out, which is very consistent with what you just said about who sees and who doesn't. So going back to dreams, even when you speak in English, there's always this German accent there.
You think so?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I wasn't certain, but I did ask around, and they told me, yes, you hear pretty well.
Well, ask Germans.
I did ask a German.
Oh, shit.
Yes, and he was very, very... I actually asked Friedrich Nietzsche, and he said, yes, he has a German accent.
Well, he didn't even speak English.
Yes, but I asked him in German.
Okay. So, what are you getting at?
Yes, I'm getting at this. Has any of the people you have been sleeping with told you whether you speak in English or German in your sleep?
Well, luckily I'm back to German, but I lived in America for a long time, and I decided to come back and go back to Europe because I realized I was dreaming in English. And I thought, that I don't want to happen to me. So the true reason why I returned was to live in my own language again. And I didn't want to, I mean, my nightmares are still in English. Lately.
So home is your language?
Yes, home is, I mean, I think it's the deepest home any person can have. And I love the word, it's mother tongue.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful word.
Yes.
In English. But
And in
in
Greek.
German it's also Muttersprache.
Same in Greek.
Your language has nothing to do with your father. No, it's your mother.
Always the mothers. When I watched the early years, the documentary on you, I was, I would say, surprised, which is something that you like doing anyway, surprising people, by the fact that there was a lot of your private life being told there. There were women talking about you, friends or ex-friends, and...
Exes, period.
Exes, period, you're right. So I'm wondering, how come you did it? It is like a diary, but I do wonder, how come you did it?
I don't have secrets.
Everybody has secrets.
Well, they are not in the movie. Because there's a beautiful thing in filmmaking and in my profession, and for you and me, and for us here, there's this beautiful division between personal and private. And personal is something very precious, because if you get to know something personal, or if you see something that is filled with personal experience, that everybody can connect to. But private, I think it's pretty ugly. So I don't think there's any privacy in it. It's personal stuff, and personal stuff is good, because personal is human, and personal is connecting. And if you make a movie about something that you don't know anything about, so there's nothing personal in it, nobody can take it personal either. So I love making films from experience and from personal knowledge, and sometimes even putting something very personal in it, like my parents, but it's not private. Now, we could talk about that distinction for a long time, but let's skip it.
And what's the distinction between truth and reality?
We can call my friend Friedrich Nietzsche.
But he doesn't speak English.
He doesn't speak English. Because I really used to believe that there was no difference, and reality was by nature the truth. But things are now, in the digital age, more difficult than that, because real is a four-letter word in English, and true as well, because they cannot be defined anymore. Nobody knows what's real and what's true, because if you're not there, but if you hear about it somehow in television or in movies or whatever, if it's secondhand, it's gone. Reality secondhand is no longer real and no longer true. And that is the nature of the digital age. It took away that beautiful, simple truth that something could be real in a movie, because it was filmed, and therefore it was real. But that's long ago, and now we don't know that anymore, and it is so tough now in a film to make people believe that it's real.
Since you like the etymology of things, in Greek, reality is pragmatikotita, and it has the word pragma in it, which means actually thing, object. But the word truth is alithia, which means lithi, which means not to forget. So alithia, truth, is about keeping the memory of it within the essence of the experience, to keep the past within the present and the future. So if something can transcend all times, then it is true.
Long live the Greek language.
Yes. You have to learn Greek. After all, you have to come and live in Athens.
Well, I love finding the essence of words, and a lot of our words in the German and English language is related to Greek words. So I know I find out all the time about the Greek words that mean something that we've forgotten. So I love the idea of Alice and the truth.
I love the idea that you came into the world of Kavafi today. I really want you to do that, and I'm really happy that it worked.
Yeah, I mean, I now read this whole thing. Yeah. It's just a dozen poems, but it blew me away. I must admit, I didn't know any.
I'm so happy that now you do.
I've already ordered the volume.
We're going to send you everything.
I have the complete poems in English, because they only had it in Greek. You wanted to have it in Greek and English. They didn't have it in Greek and German, but in Greek and English.
We'll do it.
So I ordered it already. That's the miracles of Amazon. It's home when I get there.
No, we have to take care of you.
This is really too much. I have a sneaking suspicion, though. You know, Trump, in his first time, he invented a word, and I think he was thinking of Kavafi.
He was not thinking, full stop.
I think his Kofefi was probably...
Yes.
Okay, well...
Yes, he was saying something about Gaddafi, Kavafi. Yes,
this is so beautiful, and I almost know the city by heart already.
Can you read it for us, would you?
I cannot quote it by heart. I was exaggerating, but...
But you can do it with heart.
You want me to read it?
Yes, please.
In English. The city. I leave for other lands, you said. I leave for other seas. Another city better than this is certain to be found. All my endeavors are by fate condemned, and like a corpse my heart lies buried. Till when will my mind go on wasting away? Wherever I turn my gaze, wherever I look, I see my life gone to wreck and ruin here, where I spent and spoiled and squandered so many years. That is in quotes. That's the first person talking. And now, end of quote, and here's the answer. You won't find new parts, won't find other seas. The city will follow you. You'll wander its streets, the same streets. And in the same districts you'll grow old, and in these very same houses turn gray. This is the city you'll always reach. Of places elsewhere, don't hold out hope. For you, there is no boat, no path for you, as you spoiled your life here in this little corner, so you squandered it the world over. Wow.
Thank you.
It means I can make my movies at home now.
Of course. That's exactly the point. Maybe that's why you
Don't
chose
have to
this
go
particular
anywhere.
one. Do you want to leave home again and start traveling?
Well, but it's nice to live in your own language. And it's totally true. You carry your own city metaphorically, you carry your own city with you wherever you go. So no use to.
What do you really enjoy doing?
Listening to music is my greatest joy. I do that all the time. And it's the one thing I do I do every day and as much as I can.
And do you know beforehand what you want to listen to? Or you are like, let's try this one. Oh, it doesn't work. No, I want to listen to something else.
Well, it's funny because every day starts with something, and if I'm happy with it, I continue listening to Lou Reed all day long because I have enough of his, or whatever, Nick Cave. And sometimes from the beginning it's African. I know this is a day when I need African music. And sometimes there are days when it has to be Bach, and that's it for the day, and I don't want to hear any other sound. So music is so related to whatever your unconscious lets you start the day with, and then there's a certain need, and I find it in music, and it helps me. It helps me to think, and it helps me to write, and I work with music. I mean, a lot of my friends think it's crazy, and some people never listen to music when they work, but I can only work with music. So I listen to a lot of music, and my best ideas I owe to the musicians.
Do you dance?
I shuffle a little bit sometimes.
So Pina, how come Pina Bausch didn't get you in any of her productions?
Oh, Pina got me dancing. Pina got me dancing, especially when we shot the film. And when there was no audience, I danced along.
What kind of things did you do with Pina?
Well, whatever the dancers were doing. I mean, Pina made people dance, not just her dancers, but there's amazing plays by her when there's old people and young people on stage dancing, not professionals, I mean real people dancing. It is almost therapeutic. I mean, it is. Dance is healing. So Pina knew this, and whenever I sat in any of her plays, all I wanted was jump up and dance along with them.
Are you a professional? Would you call yourself a professional or an adventurer, for instance?
There's something good about being a professional, which is that you know how to do something. And at the same time, it's the worst thing about a professional that they always know how to do things. So, and most of my films, I've made them because I didn't know how to do this. And I think it's a great reason to make a movie if you do not know how to do this damn thing. And then you should start as soon as possible, so you learn it as you do it. And that has been my drive. And a few times in my life, I realized I was doing something because I thought I was good at it, and that was always complete disastrous.
So you're a constant dancer.
Yes, I like to dance in my mind.
I remember Orson Welles being asked at some point whether he would employ somebody, he would cast somebody because he was a friend, and not necessarily because he would be the perfect person for the job. Would you cast or employ somebody because you like the person without necessarily being the perfect person for the job?
I think people who are not actors can be fantastic in a film. And actors who don't want to act but want to be somebody are just as good sometimes.
But not necessarily between professionals and non-professionals, but let's say that you can choose from 3 actors. One of them would be the best, but the other one is a friend of yours and you like him as a person. For which one would you go for?
That one. Because I can only work with people who I like. I've worked with some really great actors, but didn't really like them the more we continued. And for me, that is a big obstacle. I really have to like people. And if I like a person, that person can do many things they didn't know that they could. And the professional actor has a tendency to hide behind it. But I want to see who is that person. And for me, that's the main thing in an actor, that he's able to reveal who he is. And that is more important for me than a great actor. Bruno Ganz was both a great actor and somebody who would expose himself radically. Some actors can do both. They are both fantastic. I mean, in order to play Hitler, he had to be a great actor, but he didn't reveal himself, you see? So he could do both. And he became an angel in Wings of Desire. And there he really revealed who he was.
Why do you think people don't expose themselves? What are they scared of?
It's scary. I mean, acting is the scariest business in the film industry. Directors don't really risk that much. Cameraman, everybody, even stuntman, I think it's completely overrated how much they risk. Actors risk their lives. They risk their identity. They risk who they are when they play. And actors, I have great love for actors, but I love those who I can also love when they're not actors.
It's a complicated thing doing what you do. But I'm wondering, do you realize the idea of success? Do you enjoy success? And if you do, how long does it last?
I would need to give you a longer answer because it is a complex thing. Because success is strangely overrated. Because success doesn't really advance you. I mean, success is nice if it happens, but it's also a little shallow sometimes. And because it tells you you've done something good, continue with this, what you did. And my greatest pleasures were not necessarily my great successes, in movies at least. Those who really were success financially, I don't love them as much as those that failed. Like this one there, Until the End of the World, was a total disaster. It was a failure when it came out because it had a very hard fate. It got cut in half. And the half that was shown was mutilated and was not good. and only 20 years later or 25 years later I could show people the one that I wanted to do. And I loved it. But I still love that film. And sometimes with movies, it's a little bit with children. You don't necessarily love the ones that are successful and go out in the world and do it on their own. They're fine. But the ones that cling to you and they never really made it and they're ugly and they don't have a beautiful voice, you see you like them more, I think. Because what else can you do?
Talking about voice, have you ever watched your films being dubbed so that you don't have the actual actor?
Yeah, that happened in the 80s and 90s.
And how did it feel?
Movies were dubbed in Italian. They still do that. And French, but they do it almost not anymore. In Germany, most of movies, when I grew up, I really thought John Wayne spoke German.
Well, Ronald Reagan spoke German. I remember Ronald Reagan speaking German on RTL because we were watching RTL back then.
Some of these guys, I know they spoke German all the time. And they even could tell jokes in German. But then you hear the real voices and then out of a sudden it hits you how phony your impression of that person was, because a different voice, and even if they try to cast voices that sort of are a little bit like the original voice, if you hear the real voice of the person, then out of a sudden it's like before you saw him out of focus, and boom, he gets into focus, and that's her or that's him. I mean, Jean Moreau without her voice, I mean, I shudder at the idea, because I remember I saw Jules and Jim dubbed into German first, and I liked the movie, but she didn't really touch me. And then I saw it for the first time in French, and it was the greatest thing. And I fell in love with her, and I always, always, always wanted to make a movie with her. And this was the one where she was with us. And this was one of the greatest experiences of my life, was directing Jean Moreau. That's why I love this movie so much. I didn't have to direct her, by the way. She knew pretty much how to do it. Yeah. Every now and then a little bit.
But now that, time is always there and time is always different, if you could just go back on the road, would you have this attitude of treating time as such a luxury that it is, which you didn't have to do when you were very young? So you could just say, we're going to do this road movie, we're going to film it chronologically, and we're going to take our time. Would you take your time in the same manner if you were doing such a road movie tomorrow?
In the beginning, I thought the more you could do something with a lot of time and in chronological order, the more you could really tell a story. Because in most movies, you're not shooting them chronological order, you shoot them zigzag, you shoot the beginning at the end and the end at the beginning. So, in a strange way, is opposed to storytelling. Storytelling for me only works when at any given moment the story itself can decide where to go. And if you already shot the ending, you cannot go anywhere else than towards that. And I loved the movies I made in my life where I didn't know where that was going to lead me, and where I was a true storyteller, because I lived the story. We lived the story with the actors, and that I thought was storytelling. And then, of course, you learn to cheat, and you learn, especially if you work in America, you learn to shoot it zigzag, and you pretend to be storytelling. Most movies pretend to be storytelling. It's already done. The story has been told. People work on a film for 3 years, and they've done it so often, and then they shoot it, and they really don't have to tell it anymore because it's already prefabricated. So I like the movies that I was able to make at an earlier age. Today it's very difficult, because today if you come and tell anybody, I want to tell a story, even in my age, and although I've proven that I can do it, they tell me one. You want us to finance this with one page here? Yeah. Which I did when I was young.
How hard is it for you today to find the money to make a movie that you want to do?
In order to make a film that I can make as a storyteller, somebody who wants to find out, somebody who also wants to find out about the ending, and that's why I do so many documentaries, because nobody wants me to write it beforehand what it's going to be. I mean, although it's going to get there that they want scripts for documentaries. I know that. Most young people who do a documentary have to write it, and then they can do it. But they still let me shoot it and find out what it's about, or what Pina Bausch is about, or Anselm Kiefer, or Salgado. There was not anything written in these films, and it was a process of discovering who these people were and how they did what they did and what gave them the courage and the stamina. So in storytelling, it is fabulous if you can do that. Even Wings of Desire, we didn't have a script. It was made like you write a poem. Every day you write a line, and the next morning you get up and you have to write the next line. And that is beautiful. And also as storyteller, it's so fulfilling that you know it's open and that you have to risk a lot. But risking is the most beautiful thing in storytelling. And then you go on, and everybody involved, every electrician, anybody on the crew wants to know, how is it going on? What do we do tomorrow? And the actors love it if they're in control, and if the next scene is also the next scene in the story. It's not something at the end or so. They love it. So it's a sort of, it's almost the paradise of storytelling is if you can live the story.
But when it comes to control...
But it's no longer possible.
What's the best part when it comes to control? Trying to get it, acquiring control, or not, or the state of not being in control? Because yes, you don't control everything, but you know that you're gonna find control at some point. So which phase, because you said that you don't really have control, but you know you do. It's just a matter of time for you to have control. So what's the best moment? When you don't know what you're doing, or when you actually find out what you're doing?
It's a little bit in between. And I have to quote a film that some of you might have seen that I did by now 3 years ago, Perfect Days in Japan. Because that process is a good answer to your question. I dreamt up a film I could make in Japan that would talk about everything I like about the country and about the people and about their love for small things and about the dominance of the common good in their life, not their private good, but the common good is a huge factor in people's life. And wrote the script about a toilet cleaner. And it had so many wishes, so many things I wanted to tell about Japan and through this character. And then I found this actor, and he loved the idea that he could be this, that I would follow the life of this toilet cleaner. And then, but we still had a script, and there was still a story. And then something really, truly wonderful happened, which is exactly the question of control. For the first 2 or 3 days, we shot with him, and we discussed the scene, and he knew the script, and then we rehearsed it a couple of times, and then he did it. And that's how we shot the first and second day. And at the end of that second day, I said, Koji, we always rehearse, and I always love when you show it to me the first time. And then for some reason we rehearse again. And it's all useless, because whenever you showed me what you were doing, I felt it was so pure when you were doing it for the first time. So would you allow me to shoot the next scene without rehearsal? And he was a little bit amazed. And he said, yeah, of course, sure. And that became the shooting method. We started making a documentary of this man. We never rehearsed anymore, except if there were other actors involved. Then we had to pretend we were rehearsing. At least we had to rehearse for the other ones. But he was in total control. He became that person so completely that I could trust him blindly, like in a documentary. In a documentary, you don't go to the people and say, can you do that again? And I like it a little bit more emotional. You don't do that in a documentary. In a documentary, you follow. And telling a story in the same way, and out of a sudden, there's no more rehearsal, there's no more actor. He's the man who lives the story, and you're there to follow him. And we followed him, and he was so happy, because he said, I wanted that he said that at the end of the shoot. He said, Wim, that's my dream. I wanted that my whole life, that I could be the person. But whenever you rehearse and whenever you change, you're always a little bit away from being that person, because you're being arranged a little bit. And he said, in your film, I so much became that person, and I didn't even know you were shooting anymore. And wow, that's what I wanted my whole life. And he told me that after the last day of shooting, and his first question to me was, Wim, is it true that you have a honey wagon for me? Honey wagon is the trailers that actors have on a set. Normally actors shoot a scene and then they go to their honey wagon, and then they relax and they read or do crossword puzzles or read the script, and then you knock at the door and you say, we're ready for the next take. So actors spend hours and hours in their trailers. And at the last day of shooting, he said, is it true you had a trailer from me? I never saw it. Can you show it? I think he wanted to know if you really had it. He looked at it and he opened the door and looked in and started to laugh. He said, this is purgatory, this is hell. So he loved the idea that we made a film about him being that person. And of course, my control was minimal, except that I had written it, and we were doing it more or less as it was written. Sometimes we were shooting things that were not written. But the man became who he played. And that, you cannot control that.
Isn't that great?
And all of a sudden you realize your control normally keeps people from being it. So it's overrated. Don't tell that to any film school.
And he also said at some point that style is overrated.
I said that.
Yes. Not always.
There's nothing wrong with style. But it's overrated, yes.
But isn't it great that you can create poetry out of toilets?
It is not poetry out of toilets. Yes, you could say.
Out of them.
You could say it's poetry out of toilets. But it's poetry out of everything that I loved in this country. It's poetry out of the fact that somebody who cleans toilets he does it so people, when they come in, the next customer who comes in is in a place that he enjoys, and that it's so terrible to get. Do you know the feeling if you go into a dirty toilet? You feel that you're made dirty inside. And to come into a clean toilet, wherever it is in the world, is a little moment of happiness. You feel respected. I mean, because after all, let's not talk about toilets, but it is a critical place in human existence.
And at the end of the day, it's a story about kindness.
Yes.
It's a story about being not just a human, which is the toilets, but also being a humanist, which means that you care about other humans.
Yeah, and I like the kindness of strangers in Japan. And I like the fact that people think how other people feel. And kindness is such a beautiful thing when it happens to you. And so it's great when it happens in a movie. It does happen. Kindness cannot happen. It's not something you can plan, though. So
as Elvis Costello would say, we thank you for the days, and we definitely thank you for the kindness.
Thanks. What is the other song by Elvis Costello? It's cruel to be kind.
Yes. It's cool to be kind. That's the best style, and it's not overrated.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for giving me this book. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
I won't forget a single day, believe me. I bless the light. I bless the light that shines on you, believe me. And though you're gone, you're with me every single day, believe me. Days I remembered all my life, days where you can't see wrong from right. You took my life